There are hundreds of billions of pounds of copper in known reserves, and the whole planet is racing to buy it. Every electric car needs roughly 4 times as much of it as a petrol one. Every wind turbine, every solar farm, every data center training artificial intelligence is wrapped in it, and the power grid itself is made of it. Demand is guaranteed to rise for decades, and in July of 2025, copper hit an all-time high of around $5.90 a pound. You dig a red metal, the future cannot be built without. The safest mine on Earth, surely, it is not. Because the copper in the ground is getting weaker every year, and nothing anyone does can stop it. A century ago, the rock miners dug held around 2% copper. Today the world average has fallen near 0.5%, and at many big mines lower still. That number sounds small. It is the most important number in this business, and it is falling. Here is what it means in dirt. At 0.5% grade, 1 ton of copper means digging, crushing, and processing roughly 200 tons of rock. And every year that number climbs, because the grade keeps dropping. You are running up a down escalator, and the escalator is speeding up. By the end of this video you will know what a copper mine really costs, where the money comes from, and why the metal the whole world needs can quietly bankrupt the people who dig it, buried under the weight of its own rock. The buy-in. Start with what you are buying, because it is bigger than almost anything else humans build. Most of the world's copper comes from porphyry deposits, enormous bodies of very low-grade rock, mined in gigantic open pits, among the largest holes ever dug by people. The entry price matches. A major new copper mine is a multi-billion-dollar commitment, often $5, $10, even $20 billion, before it produces a single pound. You are not buying a mine, you are buying permission to move mountains, forever. Look at the scale it takes just to keep up. Escondida in Chile is the largest copper mine on Earth. As its grade fell, the owner poured close to $10 billion into expansion after expansion, not to grow, but to hold production steady against the decline. That one mine now processes around 375,000 tons of rock every single day. Read that again, not a year, a day, and much of that effort exists purely to fight the falling grade. The timeline is merciless too. From discovery to first metal, a large copper mine can take well over a decade, sometimes 15 to 20 years, through exploration, permitting and construction. You commit billions today for copper, you will not sell until a world you cannot see. What you inherit? You inherit a grade that only falls, and a cost that only rises to chase it. This is the trap at the heart of copper, so hold it clearly. When your grade drops from 1% to 0.5%, you process twice as much rock for the same metal, twice the digging, twice the crushing, twice the grinding, the most energy-hungry step in mining, twice the trucks, the fuel, the tires, the water, same copper at the end. Your costs do not fall with the grade, they rise, exactly as your metal per ton of rock shrinks. A vice that tightens a little more every year, on its own, whether you run the mine well or badly. You also inherit water, in places that have almost none. Many of the greatest copper mines sit high in Chile's Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, and processing that much rock drinks staggering quantities of water. Mines now build billion-dollar desalination plants on the coast, and pump seawater thousands of feet up into the mountains, just to keep grinding. Water is not a footnote in copper, it is a second mine you have to build. You also inherit depth. As the pit deepens and the high grade near the surface is exhausted, every ton is hauled farther, from lower down, at greater cost. This mine fights you more the longer you own it. So where does the money come from? The revenue layers. Number 1, and overwhelmingly the biggest, is the copper itself, sold as concentrate or refined metal on global exchanges. When it runs near record highs, as in 2025, this stream is a flood of cash. This metal is precious, and getting more so. Number 2 is byproducts, and in copper they matter enormously. The same rock often carries gold, silver, and molybdenum, and many mines earn a serious share of their income from the gold hiding in the ore. In a low-grade world, that can be the difference between a mine that makes money and one that does not. Copper pays the bills, gold pays the profit. Number 3 is scale itself. Because grade is so low, the only way to make real money is to process staggering volumes. Giants win by moving more rock per day than anyone, spreading fixed costs across a mountain of ore. In copper, being big is not a luxury. It is the whole strategy for surviving low grade. And number 4 is time. Copper is cyclical, but its long-term direction is up. Because the world needs ever more of it, and the grade keeps falling. A mine that survives the low points, and is still running when the price spikes, captures fortunes. Endurance itself is a revenue layer. Listen to that again. Go back to Escondida, the biggest copper mine in the world. Its owner spent close to $10 billion on expansion after expansion. The goal of much of that spending was not to produce more copper. It was to produce the same copper. Sit with that. $10 billion at a single mine, largely to run in place, because the grade was falling underneath them the whole time. Its reserve grade has dropped to around half of what it was at the start. To hold output steady against that decline, they kept building bigger, moving more rock, for the same metal at the end. Listen to that again. In most industries, you invest to grow. In mature copper mining, you invest billions, just to avoid shrinking. The falling grade is a current, always pulling you backward, and you spend fortunes on ever larger engines just to hold your position in the river. This is why Chile, the heart of world copper, recently posted its weakest output in nearly 2 decades, with prices near record highs and demand roaring. Not because anyone stopped trying, because the grade, across a whole country of aging mines, has fallen below the point where effort alone keeps up. Now look at the bill for fighting that current. The ledger energy first, and it is enormous. Grinding hard rock into fine powder to free tiny specks of copper is one of the most electricity-hungry processes in all of industry. As grade falls, you grind more rock for the same metal, so this bill rises year after year, structurally, forever. Then diesel, and the haul. Giant trucks carrying hundreds of tons, burning fuel to lift ore out of pits that deepen every year, move twice the rock, burn twice the fuel. Then water, which in the desert means desalination plants and pipelines climbing thousands of feet into the mountains. A cost that barely existed a generation ago, now a permanent, massive line item. Then people, and remoteness. These mines sit high in the Andes, or deep in the outback. You fly workers in, house them, pay a premium for altitude and isolation, and run day and night. And underneath all of it, the structural truth. Most of these costs are tied to the volume of rock you move, not the copper you get. So as grade falls and rock per ton rises, your cost to produce a pound climbs on its own, every year, unless you can dig faster than the grade drops. Almost nobody can, for long. The trap. Here is the trap, and it is unlike any other business in this series. In most industries, your enemy is outside you. A competitor, a price crash, a shift in demand. In copper, your deadliest enemy is inside your own pit, and it never rests. That falling grade attacks a little more every year, no matter what the price does, no matter how well you run the mine. Watch how it closes. You open a mine at 1% grade, and it prints money. Over the years you dig the best rock first, as everyone does, and the grade you have left slowly falls. To keep production up you expand, moving more rock, spending more capital. That works for a while, but the grade keeps falling, until you are moving colossal amounts of rock for a shrinking amount of metal, your cost per pound creeping up toward the copper price itself. Then one day the two lines cross. Your cost to produce a pound rises past what a pound sells for, and the greatest copper deposit in the world becomes worthless rock. Not because the copper is gone, but because what is left is too dilute to pay for the energy, water, and diesel it takes to free it. That is the trap in one sentence. The copper never runs out. The grade just falls until the rock is no longer worth digging, and a mine that looked eternal quietly runs out of economic life. The man who built this industry did it by solving that exact problem, in reverse, more than 100 years ago. The history digression. In 1898, a young mining engineer named Daniel Jackling looked at a mountain of rock in Bingham Canyon, Utah, that everyone else called worthless. It held only around 2% copper. At the time, a joke. Miners chased rich veins of 10, 20, 30%. 2% rock was waste. Jackling saw it differently. He argued something radical, that if you mined this low-grade rock not by the vein but by the mountain, at enormous scale, with steam shovels stripping it and railroads hauling it, you could produce copper for about 6 cents a pound and make a fortune. Men holding the property turned him down flat. Too low grade, they said. He spent years proving them wrong. Financing came in 1903, mining began in 1906, and Jackling was right, spectacularly. His open pit became the largest man-made excavation on Earth, more than 2 miles wide and half a mile deep, visible from space. It has yielded more copper than any mine in history. Understand what he actually did. Jackling invented the idea that low grade could be beaten by scale. That one insight built the modern copper industry, and every giant open pit on the planet is his child. But see where that idea leads. If the answer to low grade is bigger scale, then as grade keeps falling you need ever bigger scale, forever, until the scale required becomes impossible. Jackling did not just solve the low grade problem. He started the industry running down an escalator. It is still running down today, only now the grade is a quarter of what he called worthless, and the escalator has nearly reached the bottom. The death spiral case. You do not need one failed company to see the death spiral. You can watch it happen to an entire country, the greatest copper nation on Earth. Chile produces more copper than anywhere in the world, from legendary mines that have run for a century. And Chile is where the falling grade is now winning. Watch the arc. For decades, mines like Chuquicamata, one of the largest open pits ever dug, produced copper at rich grades that made them the envy of the planet. Generation after generation, they took the best rock first. The grade fell. To keep going, they went bigger and deeper. Then the open pit at Chuquicamata reached the end. After nearly a century, the surface mine could no longer pay its way. What copper was left sat too deep and too low grade to dig from the top. So its owner spent billions to convert it into an underground mine, just to keep the copper flowing at all. The pit that helped build a nation had exhausted its economic life, not because the copper ran out, but because the good grade did. Now widen the view. Across Chile, this story plays out at once, in mine after aging mine. The result, a country that recently produced its least copper in nearly 19 years, in the middle of a global boom, prices near record highs. Demand was screaming, they could not answer, because the grade had fallen below the reach of even their enormous machines. That is the death spiral of copper. Not a sudden crash, but a slow grinding decline, where the richest deposits on Earth become too weak to profitably dig, no matter how much the world wants what is inside them. The survivors. The survivors do one thing above all. They own the best grade left, and defend it. Mines that thrive have richer ore than the average, or rich byproducts of gold and molybdenum that carry them when the copper grade sags. In a falling grade world, grade is everything, and the highest grade mine on the cost curve is the last one standing. They also master scale and energy. Winners move rock more cheaply than anyone, grinding with the cheapest electricity they can find, increasingly renewable, and hauling with ever more efficient fleets. When your enemy is the volume of rock, the champion is whoever moves a ton of it for the fewest dollars. They also secure water and power for the long haul, because these are the true limits. A mine with its own desalination plant, its own cheap power and decades of secured supply can keep grinding through low grade that would bankrupt a mine paying market rates for both. Above all, they respect the escalator, they plan for grade to fall, price reserves conservatively, and never assume today's rich rock lasts forever. In copper, the pessimist about grade is the one who survives. The verdict. Does this actually work? At the top of the cycle, magnificently, a large copper mine with decent grade, running near record prices, is one of the most profitable industrial assets on Earth. At the very center of the electric future, selling a metal the world cannot build without. But be honest about the enemy you fight. You commit billions on a mine that takes a decade or more to build, to sell a metal whose price you cannot control, while battling an opponent inside your own pit that never rests. Grade will fall, rock per ton will rise, your costs will climb, structurally, every year, and your survival depends on staying ahead of a decline that has already beaten some of the greatest mines in history. Get it right, own rich rock and cheap energy and secure water, and you print money as the world electrifies. Get it wrong, or own a mine aged past its grade, and you become Chuquicamata, a legendary pit sitting on real copper, forced underground, because what was left was too dilute to pay. You never really owned the copper was always there, and it always will be. What you owned was a race against the grade, and the only question that ever mattered was whether you could pull the metal out faster than the rock turned to stone around you.